Alright, last time we watched 2 movies in the Dragon Lee box set and learned the true meaning of film editing. Okay, there are technically 2 more movies in this set, but we're gonna skip over Dragon on Fire and go straight to the last movie in the collection, Golden Dragon Silver Snake. This is my quest, to seek out the golden cheese.
Stupid! Don't laugh! Oh. Hey, why have you stopped, huh? Laugh! Laugh!
Golden Dragon Silver Snake. I don't know if they intentionally made this the last movie in the set to save the best for last, or if they were desperately trying to hide the most broken mess of a movie by hiding at the bottom, but this is absolutely both of those things. Dragon Lee plays the titular Golden Dragon, who teams up with the titular Silver Snake to fight karate crime. It combines all the lame antics of a bad Jackie Chan movie with the action-packed silliness of a fantastic Jackie Chan movie. It's kind of amazing to me that this movie was made within 1 year of the other 2 movies, considering the production values. It looks like it was filmed on Betamax, left out in the sun until all the colors bled, and then released in the wrong aspect ratio, and the only surviving copy was taped off TV. I'm not even convinced that I'm joking.
Han, we've called you here today for a reason. You know what it is.
Huh. You mean to eliminate me? I can see that's what you want.
That is correct.
I've only seen this in 2 movies so far, but I've decided it's a Godfrey Ho director trademark for a character to punch his opponent repeatedly in a circle, because comedy is equal to doofy facial expressions plus repetition. I'm pretty sure Charlie Chaplin said that once. If you thought the line delivery was awkward in the other 2 movies, at least their characters finished their sentences.
Go back and tell your boss that I will never give in to you lousy...
So after this random hero who is neither the Golden Dragon nor the Silver Snake kickboxes a gangster into accidentally riding a motorcycle, which is something that is canonically possible in this movie's universe, the bad guys report to... Oh, wow. No, incidentally, I haven't seen a James Bond movie before, so this looks like a really refreshing take on a villain character. Yes. Now punish your inept henchman by hurling your cat at his face. Ha ha! Nah, that would have been funny though. Just kidding, he does! I mean, I never was a big fan of the dumb cliche where a villain screams at his minions just because they failed to defeat a superior warrior. But in this case, their plan to kill their enemy was to ask him to meet them in the woods. Then they brought no weapons and told him their intention was to kill him. And when he fought back, they ran for their lives and abandoned 2 of their 3 motorcycles. They deserve a cat in the face.
Nobody ever refuses to pay our protection fee.
We've heard he's encouraging others to protest.
Hold on, did he say they're protesting? Is that what he meant to say? Is it possible the writer didn't really understand what the word meant and nobody else cared enough to fix the script?
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Remember, this problem is a serious threat to our basic rights. It's very important. We must not give in. Everyone must come here tomorrow and sign the letters of protest.
No, it's exactly as it sounds. They formed a for real actual protest against organized crime. They're actually signing their name on a formal letter of complaint.
Dear sirs, we wish to issue notice of our displeasure in regards to your demands of money and threats of violence over non-compliance in said activity. Sincerely, here is a full list of names of people whom you can menace at your leisure.
Remember, this problem is a serious threat to our basic rights. It's very important. We must not give in.
Are you aware they can kill you? You are aware of this. Has not one person in this meeting brought up that they are in serious moral danger by standing up to the mafia? You can't tell me that murder isn't a possibility because the first lines in the movie are about gangsters eliminating someone. And, oh yeah, the very next scene is gangsters cornering this guy in an elevator and murdering him with a power drill. power drill dagger? Whatever you want to call this weapon, I love how this guy was introduced as such a capable fighter and knew hitmen were trying to kill him, but still was incredibly unsuspecting of 4 men surrounding him in an elevator. It's obvious that the possibility of murder somehow never crossed any of these guys' minds either, because right after they just heartily agree that it's important not to give in.
Handshake was murdered. Better all just go home. Otherwise, we'll all be in big trouble.
I didn't know that there would be consequences to defying the mob!
Do you realize why Han ended up being killed? You're all free to do what you want. But bear in mind what happened to Han. This month, we'll double the rent.
Meanwhile, here's a random Kickman duel between 2 strangers, because this movie loves dead-end subplots and superfluous characters more than it loves its 2 titular main characters that still haven't appeared in the movie. Judging by their skills, I'd describe these 2 as a white dude with a black belt and a black dude with a white belt. Oh, sorry, he's an Asian guy. It's hard to tell when every single color in this movie is wrong.
Chung, your technique is not bad at all.
That's his voice? Who hired a Kentucky Munchkin for this role?
I've come here to challenge your brother to a duel with me.
And no sooner than he says the magic words, Dragon Lee magically appears, then his shirt magically reappears, Dragon Lee disappears, then this guy appears. Wait, who's the brother? Is Dragon Lee even in the same scene? Who's he fighting? Is it the same guy in a different outfit, or is he the guy's brother? Oh, okay, I guess that scene's over. No, that's fine. I guess I didn't need to know who these guys were, or what relevance to the story they had, or why this man wants to challenge this other man's brother, or what's at stake in the scene, or who actually wins the fight. You know, this movie has a lot of fun martial arts on display, and lots of bizarre creative choices, but what absolutely astounds me is the fact that they somehow accidentally left in a voice recording of editing instructions on where to cut to the next scene.
Okay, upcoming the end of segment 1, out and back in on double beats.
This does not happen only one time.
All right.
Okay, the end of number 2, out and back in on double beats. Stand by.
It raises so many questions. If they can mess up something like this badly, what other glaring mistakes do these people make on a daily basis? Has Godfrey Ho ever made a movie about dueling ninjas that halfway through turns into a languid agreement about possession of the family dog because he accidentally left divorce papers on his screenwriter's desk? I'm starting to think Godfrey Ho never found out Bruce Lee died, and he hired Dragon Lee thinking he was the real deal, and it all just kind of worked out, and no one ever put that much thought into it. Anyway, aside from charging protection money, the bad guys also have a plan to buy this family's farm so they can open a hotel. This, I guess, leads to this young hero happily destroying his own guitar to teach the thugs a lesson. These other guys help, mostly by standing there and posing, until the bad guy subdues him by throwing his hat that shoots a net. Don't worry about it. No one dies or anything. The bad guys decide they've made their point, I guess, and move along. Now, finally, the movie introduces Dragon Lee. Like, as an actual acting, talking person this time. He's a cook who just moved here for a new job, but the gangsters just told his new boss he has to pay double the normal protection money.
There's not much business. I'm afraid I can't take him.
I'd be prepared to work in exchange for food and shelter.
Yes. All right, fine.
Oh, good, all right.
His new boss seems a little, I don't know, ungrateful to someone agreeing to work for scraps, as he yells at him for singing while working.
You were the only girl in the world, and I was the only boy.
Hang on! When you cook, you shouldn't be singing. You should concentrate on your work.
Man, who would have thought a man who eagerly accepts the offer of slave labor might be kind of a jerk? The movie also introduces us to this guy I'll call Rickshaw Man. His thing is that he keeps making a mistake.
Your rickshaw is waiting.
Nobody asked for a rickshaw.
I'm ever so sorry. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Here's your rickshaw.
But we didn't order one.
Allow me to apologize. I made a mistake. I made a mistake.
I don't know if this is supposed to be a running gag or if it's some kind of ploy. Like, he keeps playing the fool, but meanwhile he's gathering information. All I can tell you is that it's a setup for a coincidental plot point later. But whether or not the character is supposed to be crafty or incompetent is completely lost on me. As is yet another staple of movies like this, characters randomly demonstrate phenomenal skill in some kind of mundane activity, which is code for them being some kind of martial arts master. And no matter who it is that happens to observe them, they all have a stupefied look on their face as if they weren't just doing stuff just like that less than a minute ago. In that same vein, Guitar Smashing Boy accidentally slams into Rickshaw Man with his car, but Rickshaw Man turns out to have dodged the entire collision and landed on a bunch of eggs without having cracked a single one. This is irrefutable proof that he's some kind of wushu genius.
Mr. Song, what'd you teach me in your style of kung fu?
I don't know what you picture when you imagine Rickshaw Man teaching kung fu to Guitar Smashing Boy, but if you didn't picture the scene in Empire where Luke Skywalker wore Yoda like a backpack, you are wrong.
Faster, faster!
Oh, he's just pulling him in his rickshaw. I remembered that wrong. You know what, I'm just gonna hereafter refer to Guitar Smashing Boy as Egg Kid because it's easier to say.
Oh!
By the way, I don't know where this movie is supposed to take place because it never explicitly says. The credits say it was made in both Korea and Hong Kong, and I don't recall a single moment in the movie where we see any sort of writing or signage or any identifiable landmarks or even cultural icons like Buddha statues or Lucky Cats. This movie that's otherwise dreadfully incompetent does such a magnificent job of obfuscating where it is that I think they must have been trying to convince both countries' governments that they filmed it in the other country to avoid taxes. This isn't even the weirdest part. When I really looked, I did find some Chinese in the background in a couple of scenes. No Korean anywhere, just Chinese, so I guess this is Hong Kong then. Except I noticed that everyone in this movie drives on the right side of the road. I looked it up, and sure enough, being a British colony, Hong Kong drivers drive on the left. They drive on the right in Korea, so I'm still nowhere nearer to solving a riddle that these guys created for me by accident. Meanwhile, for no explained reason, Dragon Lee arrives at this apartment building and then gets ambushed by a man who smacks him in the back of the head with a cane, but then doesn't really do anything. He yells for help to pretend like he wasn't the culprit, but why did he even attack him? He's not trying to mug or kill him, he just wanted to whack him on the head and call it a day. Other than the fact that Dragon Lee's wearing a head bandage in the next scene, this scene has no bearing on the plot. We never find out why he was attacked or why he was there. In any case, once thugs show up to collect their rent money, he steps in and fights to protect his boss who yells at him all the time and won't pay him. Maybe because Dragon Lee is just a virtuous person like that, or maybe it's the concussion talking. In the movies we watched prior, Dragon Lee seemed at least somewhat distinct in how he looks, acts, and fights, and someone apparently really needed to put an end to that, so here he is looking just like Bruce Lee, with a Bruce Lee haircut, making Bruce Lee noises, and even wearing a knockoff Bruce Lee jumpsuit. Bruce Lee is to Dragon Lee as David Hasselhoff is to David Hasselhoff in Baywatch Nights. We all want him to be the same guy, and they're trying so hard to make him the same guy, but you can tell he's just not. He does have one point of distinctiveness, however, which I've come to call Dragon Lee's signature move. If it's even fair to call it that. It's not so much a technique as it is him silently screaming while shaking both fists in the air at the same time. I'm fairly sure I saw him do it once or twice in the other movies, but in Golden Dragon Silver Snake, he goes beyond full ham. He goes ham and a half with this move. It's a ham influx so extreme that I have on more than one occasion skipped to a random spot in the movie to find him already in the middle of doing it. After he fights them off, I guess we come back to the subplot about attempts to buy the farm. I haven't really said a word about this guy yet, even though he's the villain we see the most of, so let's get to him in all his magnificence. He's not the main bad guy, since we never see that guy's face. He's just kind of the big bad guy who's not actually the big bad guy. I mean, TV tropes would call this sort of character the Dragon, but since we're watching a movie called Golden Dragon starring Dragon Lee, who plays Golden Dragon, I figured this would be confusing, so we'll just call him Blue Douchebag. I call him that not so much because he's a murderer, or that he just walks right inside people's houses while they're not there and smokes on their couch while waiting for them to come home so he can ask for their house. It's more his fashion statement. I know this was the 70s. It was a little more commonplace to have your hair coiffed into a plastery side-parted sleaze helmet, your mustache set to maximum porn, and maybe to wear a bright blue smoking jacket with a rose in his pocket all the time, every actual wear, and to also smoke a pipe in every conceivable social situation. All I know is this guy sure decided this was his identity and ran with it hard. I'm pretty sure his own parents wouldn't be able to identify his body if he turned up in the morgue wearing different clothes. You think I'm exaggerating a little too much? Well, here's a later scene of the gang committing sneak crime wearing stockings on their head, and he's still wearing the same outfit, complete with the rose. By the way, this movie actually explores the reason the farmer won't sell the farm, which is a generous character exploration for a movie where entire 10-minute segments are unexplained fistfights between wholly irrelevant characters that we never see again because shrug. But I guess the writer was worried that the prospect of the farmer losing his family's home was not a satisfying enough reason not to hand over his personal property to benefit organized crime, so they decided all these ridiculous fight scenes need to grind to a halt so he can emotionally express his family history to the criminal who's harassing him.
The people you see in that photograph were my sister and her husband. 4 years ago, they were killed in a most terrible accident. But they'd turn in their graves if their daughter sold the farm.
So because a family member died, that makes this farm sacred or something? I mean, maybe I just don't understand the culture of some town over in scenic, unnamed part of Asia, but is it considered a disgrace to a family member's memory to ever sell their belongings for any reason? You're just stuck with their house forever because it would be disrespectful to sell it, I guess. But I do understand that if his sister built this farm with her own two hands, there is some wisdom in putting into her will not to sell to home invaders who don't even have the decency to take off their ridiculous suits during their covert ninja activities. But meanwhile, Rickshaw Man is training Egg Kid with weights tied to his hands and feet, and it's been 5 minutes since the bad guys pointlessly harassed random people.
Just look at you imbeciles. What are you doing here?
Huh? What we're doing has nothing to do with you.
Hasn't it? Stupid rickshaw man.
Just in case you forgot, Godfrey Ho is not Godfrey Ho if he goes more than 300 consecutive seconds without a superfluous fight scene.
You made me drop it.
Or preposterous sound effects. In fairness, I don't know what sound effect is appropriate for priming your head for attack. I'm just not sure it's a bongo roll followed by banging a mustard spoon on a glockenspiel. I've watched this scene more than 20 times, and I'm still at a loss as to how I could describe it to you with any kind of justice, so I'll just let you stew in your own thoughts for this one.
Standing hard. Hanging hard. Flying fist. On the moon. Straight punch.
Master, I'm enjoying this.
Straight fist. Back fist. Turning fist. Keep turning. Back fist. You'd better all go home and practice your kung fu.
Rickshaw man, I'll take revenge. You wait and see, I will.
Okay, the end of number 4. Out and back in on double beep. Stand by.
Pick that thing up. You're improving.
To get back to the actual plot, Dragon Lee ends up getting fired for starting a fight with the Mafia.
Because you've caused them trouble.
No one mentions the fact that he also destroyed his boss's restaurant, but I imagine that was also a bullet point. I'm just not sure why he wasn't fired immediately after the fight. I mean, I don't know how much time passed between that last scene and now, but apparently it was enough time for his head wound to completely heal. Seeing as these two have had such a close personal relationship, Dragon Lee decides this is the perfect time to reveal his shadowy past.
I'm searching for the murderers who killed my brother Hang Shek.
Hey, look at that! They finally managed to make a Dragon Lee movie where he's not out to avenge his father. Someone who really studied up on their screenwriting noticed you have a whole variety of different relatives to kill off. I'm going out on a huge limb here, but remember that earlier scene where muscular black man challenged someone's brother in a Looney Tunes voice? Did that end in an off-screen murder, which is somehow vaguely connected to this crime syndicate? It's the only reason I can think of why Dragon Lee appeared on screen as soon as he said the word brother. But maybe his brother was the guy stabbed with a power drill in the elevator, and the Mortal Kombat in an empty field just had nothing to do with anything. And I guess they just shoehorned Dragon Lee into the scene to make it look like it was connected somehow. Or third option, maybe it's a character we haven't seen or heard of in this entire runtime despite being crucial to the plot. This is a multiple choice quiz where all 3 answers result in incomprehensible nonsense even if we could figure out what the actual answer is, which we can't. Maybe life exists on other planets, and maybe one day we'll prove conclusively which religion is right, but the one thing I'm most confident about is that I'm going to die having never figured out the plot of Golden Dragon Silver Snake. I mean, it kind of follows basic rules like escalation, like when these guys report back that they were defeated by an old man with a twig and a doofus with bags of rocks on his hands.
You're an imbecile!
So he sends some muscle to back them up. By which I mean a white guy who doesn't look threatening at all.
I don't tolerate losers.
You're in a room full of shirtless muscle men, and sitcom dad is the secret weapon. Okay, but at least I understand what's going on right now, as opposed to seconds later when he gets a phone call from his crime boss, or rather his boss's phone crony.
This is the manager. Who's calling?
The boss wants to see Mr. Ma and Mr. Lowe, and he wants to see them immediately.
Is this a prank phone call or something? It feels like a sketch where someone decided they would play a wacky character, but they didn't come up with any jokes or any specific character traits and quickly improvised on the spot. Hey, what if I put a blanket on my head and coughed a lot? That's a funny character, right?
Hello, I'm calling for Madonna. This is her agent, Samuel Agentman. Lost and found. I am missing a bird.
I don't think this was intended to be funny, but even if it was, I'm only laughing because I don't know what this even is I'm looking at. Also, Godfrey Ho did a telephone scene and he's not using a Garfield phone? That's some heresy.
Are you the person who works as a cook?
The person who works as a cook? Why yes, I alone fit that description. How may I assist you? It's funny how he even used the genderless word person. I like to imagine these guys got into over a dozen fights on the way here because they kept asking everyone they saw, man or woman, if they work as a cook, and some of them said yes. Anyway, as it happens, the white guy is an even worse fighter than I thought. So, after losing one fight, he actually just decides to go home to America and we never see him again.
I'm going back to the States. There's no point hanging around this place.
Maybe he goes on to star in one of Godfrey Ho's American movies, like Ninja American Warrior, Ninja Squad, American Commando 3, Ninja Dragon, American Ninja... Wait, that wasn't him. Enter the Ninja... No, that wasn't him either. American Dragon Jake Long. Look, all of his movies have confusingly similar names, and they all look and sound like other movies. The only way to know for sure if a movie is a Godfrey Ho movie is to turn it on and wait for something stupid to happen. Since Dragon Lee needs another job, Eggkid takes him to the farm to work for Old Man, just in time to be asleep when the crime geniuses show up. Oh, also, Eggkid has a crush on Old Man's niece.
You're in love with her.
All right, but she doesn't really know it yet.
Don't worry. I'll help you.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh, thanks.
Just from the fact that I'm even bringing this up, you already know I'm gonna say this romantic subplot is never gonna go anywhere. Which would be wacky, but it's actually even better than that. We'll come back to this later. In the meantime, there's a home invasion happening. I already made fun of Blue Douchebag, but really, why are these porridge-brained mooks even bothering to disguise themselves? Aside from the fact that there is no way this guy could be any other person on planet Duh, did they think no one could ever put together that they might be the guys overtly threatening them on a daily basis and who have already admitted to killing their associates? They commit unmasked crimes out in the open all day, every day, but suddenly their identity needs to be secret. This movie isn't even half over and has already enriched my life in innumerable ways.
Who's there?
Now here's a little pop quiz for you. You illegally break into someone's home, and his phone rings in the middle of your abduction attempt. Do you A, ignore it, B, smash it, C, rip the phone cord out,
Who is it? She's already asleep.
or D, answer the phone and try to convince the caller that the owner is asleep while he's clearly audible in the background screaming and swinging a sword? Incredibly, nobody remembers that they own a gun, which his niece pulled out last time this criminal mastermind broke in. Now, you might find it silly that in all this ruckus, nobody woke up until one of the farmhands is silently stabbed, which instantly alerts all of them. But I have a theory. Considering Godfrey Ho likes to add stupid sound effects to everything, it's weird that this part is so quiet. He probably just forgot to add one. I don't know what sound he would have picked for this, but if you imagine it was an air horn sound, this scene all starts to make sense. So after the old man and his gun-wielding niece are kidnapped and multiple farmhands are murdered, a police officer comes over to investigate. I don't know if they just couldn't find a police uniform for the scene, or if this is accurate cop attire in unnamed part of Asia, but despite the fact that it's egregiously, brainlessly obvious who committed this crime, and they're standing in the blood of their dead colleagues, Rickshaw Man helpfully tells the cop there's no evidence.
Also, we don't have any proof.
Although, immediately after the cop leaves, he conveniently remembers that this city's criminal element all hang around a gymnasium all day, which he knows because of his weird comedic routine. So, Dragon Lee goes to investigate with a flawless disguise and impeccable cover story.
I'm from the telephone company,
There's nothing wrong with the phone. Be off with you.
but I have company orders.
I love how he doesn't even wait to see whether he convinced anyone before immediately taking off his hat, which apparently reveals his true form. Hey, I recognize him! He's one of the only 3 people who actually resist us! Also, his hostages are right there in the main room of the gym that's 100% open for business to the public, so anyone who just walks right in the unlocked front door sees them immediately. And here's them. They're so fantastically obvious, I'm pretty sure you could detect them with all 5 senses if you were to walk in and just stumble around for a few seconds with your tongue out. It's too bad convincing police officer couldn't find any proof, right? Dragon Lee manages to rescue gun niece. Oh, hold on, this part is great. Dragon Lee manages to rescue gun niece, but the old man gets taken and brought before the big boss. Up until now, they've offered to buy his farm, but never gave a specific actual number. But now they give him one actual final offer.
Old man,
We are now offering you a large amount of money in exchange for 60 acres of land.
Ooh, now that's enticing. They upgraded from unknown number to a lot of money. Don Corleone would call this an offer that you have. I love how they're specific about the size of his property, but can't specify the amount of money they're offering. Maybe currency in unnamed part of Asia would be too difficult to convert to one Western audiences would understand. That would require Godfrey Ho to do math, and no Godfrey Ho movie ever involved math of any kind. Except for that one time he accidentally left his son's algebra homework on the scriptwriter's desk.
If he insists on keeping the farm, there's nothing we can do. Let him go.
So, are they actually letting him go? I mean, I know they're the bad guys, but if they wanted to kill him, they could just kill him right now. There's nothing stopping them, and nothing gained from pretending. They must have something else up their sleeves that they need him alive for, right? I guess not. Hello, person who doesn't live here speaking. What's that? Corpse suitcase? So the bad guys forged signatures to close the deal, and the fact that the seller died of spikes to the face the very same day will surely not be in any way suspicious. So they go on to plan a celebration for this goon's birthday.
Here, your present.
We've only seen this guy maybe once or twice before, but suddenly he's super important to the plot, since it's soon revealed he's the one who murdered Dragon Lee's brother. We'll get to that in a moment.
Those gangsters are the same people who murdered your own brother.
Mr. Wall, would you repeat that under oath in court?
Yes. You've taught me something.
Here we go, the end of number 7, out and back in on double beat. Stand by.
I don't know how a group of breathing human professionals pulled it off, but they somehow accidentally created a perfect running gag. The timing of it always manages to just perfectly take you by surprise. The one time this movie actually managed to create some actual real drama, and they just destroyed it. Amazing. Anyway, so this guy who's only been in 2 scenes and is now celebrating his birthday is, for some reason, dressed exactly like the blue douchebag, right down to the white rose. And in the midst of this celebration, Dragon Lee and Egg Kid crash the dress exactly like your friend party, toting a coffin. Now that we're nearing the end of the movie, I have to ask you, who is the Silver Snake? The synopsis of the movie is that the Golden Dragon teams up with the Silver Snake, but who is he? Is he the Rickshaw Man? Is he Egg Kid? I was starting to think it's probably Rickshaw Man, since he's the sly kung fu master, and he's apparently the one who's been working together with Dragon from the beginning. But then right as the climactic battle is about to begin, Rickshaw Man is conveniently not around, and it's Egg Kid for the rest of the runtime. I guess they couldn't fit Rickshaw Man inside the car because they needed room for this gigantic coffin they brought along just for dramatic effect. Oh, and if you figured they had some sort of reason for bringing that coffin, it doesn't have any cool ninja bombs or vampires or more of their kung fu friends hidden inside of it. They didn't have any kind of plan involving it. Whatever cool tricks you think they may have had up their sleeves disappear from your mind as soon as one of the random mooks just falls into it, and then they just abandon it like they've already made their point. This happens about a minute and a half into the fight. The one and only reason they brought it was so they could brag about how they're gonna kill only 2 scenes man.
I've come to give you a present.
I don't know if they built this whole coffin from scratch, or if the unemployed cook who worked for food and shelter could somehow afford to buy it from a notoriously overpriced industry. Either way, they also went to the bother of securing it to their car and driving across town entirely so they could add a quick visual aid to their threat. Was this plan A? Were they originally planning to drive up with a dump truck full of soiled diapers just so they could tell him, hey, you smell?
You murdered my brother Hanshek. Now you will pay with your life.
I'm gonna help you join him. Get him, men. Men!
Get him! In the most absurd attack formation possible! Now, here's one thing I really think I need to address, which is Dragon Lee's baseball bat. If you go on IMDb, one of the poster images for this movie is him holding this bat. Earlier in the movie, you see his boss yell at him for playing with it and he puts it away. We've now firmly established it as Chekhov's bat. Now, I already drew attention to the ridiculously overlooked actual Chekhov's gun, which would have been really handy about now, but let's forget about that. Fake Bruce Lee has spent half the movie with something slung over his shoulder, and while we all watch and wait for him to finally take it out, he just keeps acting like he doesn't even have it, despite a vast and ever-increasing number of opportunities for him to actually use it. Were they trying to make it a surprise, like we don't all already know it was his baseball bat? I could show this movie to an alien Zerploid who has never seen a movie before and ask him what he thinks it could be. He would be able to tell me instantly, but would do so as one final act of kindness before he blows up our planet because the human race is clearly too stupid to go unexploded. It's kind of hard to be surprised by how wacky the combat gets here, since revenge fighting hijinks is kind of what this movie is about, but from here on out, the movie just finds weird ways to stay unpredictably silly. Aside from what sound effects Godfrey Ho finds acceptable for someone sitting on a sprinkler, this movie teaches you that apparently they just go off for no reason, and that getting sprayed in the face by a small stream of water renders you completely and absolutely helpless. Well, it didn't have to teach me this. I know, man. I was there. The Super Soaker Wars of 1993 claimed many lives, and those who survived found themselves unable to speak of the horrors they'd witnessed. Part of me is still there, in the suburbs of Mississauga. Guys, you don't have to attack his legs. He's lying on his back. You can attack literally anywhere on his body other than his legs.
Okay, here's the end of number 8. Out and back in on double beat. Stand by.
How does it taste?
I've got nothing. How do you make fun of this? What is that? I need a break. Intermission time. Today's out of context clip comes from season 2, episode 8 of Star Trek.
He's dead. You cannot have killed him. You have no weapons.
Scotty's dead. He had too much happiness, but now he's happier he's dead. And we'll miss him. Let us hear it for our poor dead friend.
We now return to Ninja Dragon Silver Ninja. Okay, so when we last left off, Egg Kid used his magical telekinetic egg powers to levitate an egg into a guy's mouth, and the taste of egg apparently rewired his whole brain. So when asked how it tastes, he somehow completely forgot they were fighting and just kind of regarded him like he was asking an earnest question before getting unexpectedly punched out. I think that's what's happening, because what? This is where Dragon Lee begins his epic battle with Only Two Scenes Man, who dramatically takes off his wig to reveal... Reveal what? This isn't a reveal. We learn nothing from this. It wasn't his real hair? I can't believe a man we didn't know anything about 5 minutes ago has different hair than we knew about. Did they think we were surprised to find out that he's not really the other blue douchebag, even though they were literally just standing next to each other? I'm sure you've noticed by now that I'm not using any of these characters' actual names, and gave them all nicknames so you can tell them apart. This isn't just because I'm trying way too hard to be funny. It's also because while these characters are mentioned by name once or twice, there's so many characters, and it's impossible to remember any of their names. In fact, the IMDb page doesn't even tell you what a single character's name is. Not one. If IMDb can't keep them straight, I sure as heck can't. Now, most of this movie's silliness revolved around characters acting in a way no human person would ever act. Up until now, the laws of physics have been cooperating, relatively speaking, and Godfrey Ho decided that this has been going on long enough because we've got whatever this is. and whatever is going on here. But all that pales in comparison to this next part. After Dragon Lee beats up a guy who's rendered powerless by a swing set, he launches a guy 10 feet in the air by kicking a teeter-totter, and then he leaps and manages to stay in the air long enough to completely choke a guy out with his feet before he finally drops to the ground. And no, I don't know why this birthday party for gangsters came complete with a children's playground, but I thought I'd mention this in case you missed that. Which is understandable if, like me, you were too stunned by the fact that Dragon Lee somehow hung in the air for longer than it took to write this movie's script. This is immediately followed up with Dragon Lee pointing at nobody, and then jumping so far he lands in a completely different part of town. Mr. Ho, making a movie is a wonderful thing. And one of the best things about it is that you can create pretty much anything you can imagine. But just because you can make anything doesn't mean you should let anything I say hold you back. Please keep doing what you're doing. You know how I misremembered Egg Kid carrying Rickshaw Man around like Yoda? Seeing what you've now seen, can you really blame me? It's not even that silly. I just wrote in my notes that a grown man carries another grown man on his back, and in a movie as constantly absurd as this one, I just didn't give it a second thought. So at this point, Egg Kid gets beaten into a car, somehow, for some reason. And so now Dragon Lee has to fight Blue Douchebag alone. And while he's armed himself with a power drill dagger, Dragon Lee still is not using his baseball bat. Then only 2 scenes man takes off his blue smoking jacket to reveal he was wearing red underneath. Okay, that's now 2 dramatic reveals this character's had in this scene that don't actually reveal anything. Did they forget to film some kind of important scene that required this guy to disguise himself? Not as someone the heroes know and trust, but disguise himself as his own friend, who they already know is also a bad guy? I just can't wrap my mind around this, guys. What is actually going on? Was the disguise part of the plot to a different movie they were filming at the same time and they got them mixed up? Stop putting stuff on the screenwriter's desk, Godfrey! And Dragon Lee still is not using his baseball bat. Then they have a fight on top of a speedboat, and Dragon Lee is still not using his baseball bat. I know Superman forgets what powers he has in all of his cartoons, but he has the excuse of having 40 superpowers to keep track of. Dragon Lee has one trick up his sleeve, and it's baseball bat. Give us baseball bat! The scene ends where Dragon Lee falls out of the boat, and his foe returns triumphant, which is immediately followed by Dragon Lee inexplicably having arrived at the bad guy's lair, and of course he's bone dry. I can't say I expected Coughing Blanket Man of all people to make a reappearance here, but sure.
Who are you?
Well, as you can see, I'm a blind cripple.
Was this the guy who beamed him back in that apartment scene? No, totally different guy. That scene is no less confusing now at the end of the movie. Even if we assume Dragon Lee was there to investigate the elevator death of the man who may or may not have been his brother, he hadn't asked any questions or uncovered anything before he was sucker caned by yet another unrelated guy, and this is before anyone knew who he was or what he was looking for. The more you think about this movie, the less you understand. I am a dumber person for every plot thread I try to examine. But to get back to the wheelchair man, I guess the stilted telephone conversation was a kind of foreshadowing? But we'll have to come back to him because we also foreshadowed the spike trap, so we have to do something with that. Still no bat, no gun, no coffin, no net hat, and no entire kung fu master, just the spike trap. Oh, but there is a second trap that wasn't hinted at, which loses its impact as a surprise plot point when Dragon Lee instantly bursts out of it in 3 different places for some reason. Never ask Dragon Lee to open a bag of potato chips for you.
Somebody, please rescue me. Help! Help!
Here, I'll give you a hand.
Oh, my God!
Then, yet another dramatic reveal where it turns out the shadowy big bad guy was the old man, and also the police officer. What a flawless policeman costume. So, let's just get this all straight. After the blue douchebag pointlessly put a stocking on his face, and only two scenes man pointlessly dressed up like the blue douchebag, now the big boss villain turns out to have pointlessly disguised himself both as a sick old man and as a police officer. Two characters that only made two short appearances, and neither of whom the heroes even trusted, so it's not even a betrayal. And that's not counting how Dragon Lee disguised himself as himself but with a hat just to reveal himself immediately. How many pointless disguises can you have in just one movie? By the way, if he was just faking being old and sick, why did he disguise himself to make a phone call? And he's coughing even after he hangs up when no one can hear him. I can only conclude the boss is a super dedicated method actor. And man, do I love the irony of this movie featuring someone who cares about his craft. And he tells Dragon Lee that he's the one that killed his brother.
And how would you like to learn that I killed your brother?
Which is bizarre because they established that only two scenes man is the one that killed his brother. And if this guy in the elevator is indeed supposed to be his brother, he was killed by Blue Douchebag. I'm not saying this conclusively proves anything, but the theory that the elevator guy was Dragon Lee's brother was the possibility I was leaning the most towards, and this does nothing but provide serious doubt that that's the real answer. Godfrey Ho has gone to such great lengths to prevent me from understanding the plot of his movie, and I both hate him and love him for doing so. I'm sure if I went back to meticulously check each character's names and managed to keep them straight, some of the plot confusion I have would go away, but I'm telling you right now that if you do this and figure out what's going on, don't you dare tell me. Ignorance is bliss and I am having a ball. So now, only now, does Dragon Lee get out his bat. This video is running pretty long now, so I want to kind of skip through this, but I'd be doing everyone a disservice if I didn't show the tree climbing bit. And then Rickshaw Man shows up right out of the royal blue and doesn't actually fight. He just throws rocks, which unlocks the true potential of the baseball bat. But, is Egg Kid okay? Last we saw him, he was beaten into a car, and then we haven't heard from him since. Well, whatever. Golden Dragon wins the day with the help of one of the two people who might be the Silver Snake, and I still don't know which one it is.
Look there.
Okay, here's the end. Stand by.
Can I remind you that the only romance mentioned in the movie up until this point was earlier when Dragon Lee promised to help Egg Kid win Gunniece over? What a great wingman he is to his dear friend who got him a job, helped him avenge his brother, and who even now is still abandoned in the back of a gangster's car where his eyes have been beaten closed. This is the conclusion to the romantic subplot. Or, I don't know, can you call it a romantic subplot when the entirety of the romance is two people smiling at each other across a field, standing over the dead body of the man who killed both of their families? And this is only after a friend helpfully pointed her out. You won't believe this one casual lady acquaintance smiling in a field. Why is she even there, Godfrey Ho? Oh, I was just out for a stroll through a nefarious mob boss's criminal estate full of death traps, and once again didn't bother to bring my gun. The huge. So that's the Dragon Lee box set. Mwah! I give it a sharp cheddar out of 10. Well, thanks for watching.
Thank you.